The anime opens with the Demon King summoning what are said to be the four strongest generals in his demon army. The first is Aladora, the warrior of hell. The second is Silid, the grand mage of storms. The third is Gnome, the earth fortress. Lastly, there is a newly appointed general who appears shocked and bewildered by his sudden arrival, Fuchimura, the director of operations, who turns out to be the protagonist of the story. The scene shifts to Uchimura's past. He was once a simple office worker, full of hope and ambition to achieve great success. Unfortunately, things didn't go as planned. His colleagues were promoted one after another while he remained overlooked and unappreciated. A turning point came when his manager transferred him overseas to a factory still under construction, an infamous location known as a graveyard for failures. Uchimura moved to the new town with a glimmer of hope. When he reached out to his manager for help, he was met with anger and accusations of wasting company resources. Despite this, Uchimura refused to give up. Determined to succeed, he poured all his efforts into revitalizing the factory, doing everything himself from organizing to cleaning and more. Over time, his hard work paid off. The workers began to respect and support him, and the factory started to thrive. Just when things were finally improving, an unexpected blow came. His manager decided to transfer him to another factory in a different country. Devastated, Uchimura questioned the purpose of his efforts. One day, while lost in thought on the street, a motorcycle suddenly hit him from behind. In that moment, he found himself transported to the realm of the Demon King. At first, Uchimura believed he had landed in hell. The Demon King welcomed him warmly, calling him by name. Shocked, Uchimura asked how the Demon King knew his name. The Demon King confidently replied, "Of course I know you, I summon you here." He explained that after reviewing Uchimura's professional history, he was certain Uchimura was the perfect candidate to become the fourth general in his army. But Uchimura, still conflicted, responded that joining the Demon King's army sounded like a descent into the depths of the underworld. However, the Demon King interrupted, assuring him, "I'll provide you with all the benefits and perks you could ask for. You'll have complete freedom to choose anyone you want to work under you, and your salary will match that of top executives in your world." Uchimura was taken aback by the offer, struggling to process what he was hearing. The Demon King added, "If you're not satisfied, I'll send you back to your world." Relieved by the Demon King's respect for his autonomy, Uchimura began to reconsider. The other generals, however, protested. They voiced their disbelief that a weak human like Uchimura could ever become a general in the demon army. Uchimura thought to himself that they were probably right, but the Demon King remained unfazed, declaring, "If all of you object, then we'll put him to the test." Uchimura was stunned. The Demon King explained, "If he passes the test, none of you will have any grounds to object." Mandora, driven by her fascination with the supernatural powers of individuals from another world, decided to test these claims herself. She launched a devastating attack on Uchimura. Before her attack could land, the Demon King intervened, halting her assault. When Mandora demanded an explanation for his interference, he calmly pointed out her tendency to lose control when angered. He directed her attention to Uchimura, who had collapsed from the overwhelming shock of the incident. The onlookers, stunned by the scene, expressed disbelief, noting that Uchimura was nothing more than an ordinary human. The Demon King affirmed this fact, prompting Mandora to question how someone so ordinary could hold the position of one of his generals. Despite her objections, the Demon King stood by his decision, explaining that Uchimura's presence in the army was deliberate. The Demon King acknowledged the internal challenges within his forces, but emphasized that Uchimura's intelligence and strategic thinking were precisely what the army needed. The Demon King revealed that Uchimura's first test would be to secure an agreement with the Minotaur army. This revelation left Uchimura stunned, comparing the challenge to the difficulty of a high-stakes job interview. The Demon King informed Uchimura that he could turn to Mandora for assistance if needed and left him to face the daunting task ahead. Mandora interrupted his thoughts, announcing their arrival at their destination, a massive door, which she identified as the entrance to the Minotaur leader's chamber. As the door creaked open, Uchimura was overwhelmed by fear at the sight of the towering Minotaur leader. The leader's imposing figure made Uchimura doubt whether peaceful negotiation was even possible. Sensing his hesitation, Mandora offered to help, sharing some tips on negotiation. Uchimura felt a brief sense of relief, but it quickly evaporated as her abrasive approach immediately angered the Minotaur leader. Observing the chaos, Uchimura silently concluded that Mandora was ill-suited for diplomacy. After leaving the chamber, Mandora explained that the negotiations had initially been going well but collapsed when the leader outright rejected the proposed conditions. She admitted to multiple failed attempts to negotiate in the past and, in her frustration, blamed the Minotaur leader for being unreasonable. Turning to Uchimura, she declared it was now his turn to handle the negotiations, leaving him speechless and unsure of how to proceed. Standing alone, Uchimura questioned how he could possibly persuade such an intimidating creature. In his uncertainty, a memory surfaced of difficult negotiations he had faced in his previous life. During challenging times, he would retreat to a quiet tavern to clear his mind and find clarity. Recalling how he had always managed to overcome obstacles, he steadied himself, drawing upon his past experiences and resolving to succeed in the negotiations, no matter what lay ahead. The focus shifted to the Demon King, where Mandora provided an update on Uchimura's situation. The Demon King, maintaining his composure, expressed confidence in waiting to see how Uchimura's negotiations would unfold. Later, Mandora stumbled upon Uchimura surrounded by piles of trash, rummaging through the mess as requested by the Minotaur leader. Several filled bags sat neatly beside him. She remarked on how quickly he had taken control of the negotiations. The following day, Uchimura entered the Minotaur leader's chamber. Mandora, unable to suppress her curiosity, decided to check on the progress. To her surprise, the room was filled with heaps of the Minotaur leader's trash, but neither Uchimura nor the leader was present. Confused, she speculated that the negotiations might have failed, prompting the leader to leave. At that moment, Uchimura appeared calmly, explaining that the Minotaur leader was with the Demon King finalizing the agreement. Mandora, baffled, demanded to know what had happened. Uchimura revealed that the agreement had been completed the previous day. Stunned, Mandora questioned how he managed to strike a deal with someone so notoriously stubborn in just one day. Uchimura explained to her that she had misunderstood the situation. She believed the Minotaur leader was rejecting the negotiations, but in reality, the negotiations were progressing smoothly. The issue, he said, was the negotiation approach. He shared an experience from his past with a client who initially rejected everything, but later agreed once trust was established through clear, passionate, and emotionally driven explanations of the terms. Uchimura pointed out that the failure in Mandora's negotiations stemmed from the Minotaur leader not understanding the terms or the purpose of the negotiations. He also highlighted that the straw requested by the leader was an important gesture of goodwill in their culture, as the Minotaurs used straw to accommodate guests, sleeping on it to avoid overcrowding their rooms with furniture. The leader had been frustrated because he couldn't sleep comfortably on the ground. Hearing this, Mandora felt a pang of regret, realizing that the failure had been due to her inability to understand the Minotaur leader. However, the Minotaur leader interrupted, admitting that the fault was mutual. He hadn't understood her negotiation style either and apologized to her. They shook hands, reconciling their differences. The Minotaur leader then expressed gratitude to Uchimura, thanking him for making the agreement possible. At that moment, the Demon King appeared and praised Uchimura's unique talent for identifying unnoticed problems and resolving them effectively. He then formally welcomed Uchimura as a general in his army, declaring that no one could doubt his abilities after the success of this test. He turned to Mandora, who, though reluctant, finally agreed with the decision. The Demon King then asked Uchimura to extend his hand. He presented him with an emblem symbolizing his status as one of the 4 generals. After putting it on, Uchimura was instructed by the Demon King to always act decisively and do what he believed was right without hesitation. Uchimura felt a deep sense of pride and pledged to fulfill his role with dedication. Mandora, in her usual sharp tone, asked Uchimura to raise his hand. When he seemed confused, she scolded him and explained that this was their way of welcoming new comrades. She then declared that she hadn't fully acknowledged him yet and demanded that he prove himself further by succeeding in more negotiations. The Demon King concluded by stating that the army was still incomplete and had many issues to address. However, with
Our new anime begins with our protagonist, An. Standing at the edge of a cliff, tired of the world and overwhelmed by despair, he decides to end his life, believing he is the weakest in existence. As he takes the fateful leap, we rewind to the past to understand how he arrived at this moment. An was once part of a party of 2 individuals, Zoid, a magician, and Jolene, a swordsman. Together, they descended into a dungeon to hunt monsters and earn money. The trio successfully defeated a giant rat, but the task of salvaging its valuable parts fell to An. As an appraiser, a low common class job, An was tasked with identifying and extracting useful materials. Zoid mockingly referred to An as a trash picker, a term commonly used to demean appraisers. In this world, one's status and future are determined at birth. The goddess of light grants individuals their job, while the goddess of darkness bestows their skills. While skills can be trained and leveled up, the assigned job is permanent and passed down through generations. The society is divided into 3 classes: rare classes like merchants and strategists, high common classes with combat roles, and low common classes, which include appraisers and farming-related jobs. An, born into a low common class family, lost his parents early in life and was unable to continue the family business. With no other options, he became an adventurer despite his appraiser status. Unlike combatants, appraisers were often looked down upon since their skills could be replicated by magic tools and guilds. This made An a target of ridicule and mistreatment, particularly by Zoid, who hired On specifically to avoid getting his own hands dirty. After defeating the giant rat, On noticed its tooth was valuable, but struggled to pry its mouth open. He asked Zoid for help, but Zoid sneered, insisting On do it himself. With no choice, On complied, enduring the insults and humiliation. However, deeper in the dungeon, they stumbled upon a dead hellhound. Zoid, elated by the potential loot, ordered On to extract its parts. On, however, found the situation suspicious. Finding a dead B-rank monster without any signs of battle was unusual. He tried to warn Zoid and Jolie, but they dismissed his concerns, threatening to withhold his share of the earnings if he didn't comply. Reluctantly, Thawne obeyed, but as they ventured further, they found an entire horde of dead hellhounds. Zoid and Jolene celebrated their apparent luck, while On's instincts screamed that something was wrong. His suspicions were confirmed when the real perpetrator of the carnage emerged, a monstrous creature far beyond their capabilities. Chaos ensued as Zoid and Jolene attempted to fight, but swiftly realized they were outmatched. In desperation, Zoid ordered Jolene to cast a paralyzing spell on, using him as bait to escape. Jolene complied without hesitation, and the treacherous duo fled, leaving On to face the horde alone. The monsters descended upon Han, tearing into him as he lay paralyzed. The excruciating pain eventually broke the spell, and On managed to throw his bag forward, using its contents as a distraction to flee. In this world, people gain unique abilities by eating the fruit of the skill tree. These abilities range from becoming a powerful firebender to a legendary sword saint. However, for Light, his skill was far less impressive. He became a nutting master. The day of the skill ceremony was one of excitement and hope. Light and his childhood friend, Lena, walked together to the church, eagerly discussing their potential skills. Light had always dreamed of being an adventurer, so any combat-oriented skill would do. Lena, on the other hand, didn't care what skill she received, as long as she could stay by Light's side. Despite her nervousness, Light reassured her that they would both gain incredible skills. At the church, the Holy Sister explained the rules of the skill fruits. Eating a fruit would grant a skill tied to a specific profession, ensuring a secure job without the burden of student loans. However, there was a strict, immutable rule. No one could eat more than one skill fruit. Consuming a second would result in certain death, a warning cemented by the tales of countless victims who had ignored it. Lena was the first to choose. As she bit into her fruit, her body radiated a blinding light, and the Holy Sister gasped. Lena had acquired the legendary sword saint skill. It was a once-in-a-decade occurrence, and Lena's destiny as a top-tier adventurer was sealed. Light cheered for his friend, overjoyed by her success, before stepping up to claim his own skill. Nervously, he took a bite of his chosen fruit, but instead of gaining an awe-inspiring combat ability, he was blessed, or cursed, with the nutting master skill. The Holy Sister tried to console him, but the truth was clear. His ability was limited to farming nuts. Devastated, Light begged to try another fruit, but the fatal consequences were non-negotiable. Lena, ever supportive, promised to stay in the village and help Light grow nuts. However, the Holy Sister had other plans. Lena's talent as a sword saint was too precious to squander, and the sister insisted she leave for the royal capital immediately to begin her training. Torn but unable to refuse, Lena left, promising Light she would return for him one day. 3 months passed. Light had embraced his role as a farmer, using his skill to grow and sell high-quality nuts. Though his profits were modest, he tried to stay positive. However, the pain of Lena's absence lingered, and news of her rapid rise to S-rank adventurer only deepened his sense of inadequacy. Despite his skills' limitations, Light trained tirelessly